Good morning to you, my friends, wherever you may be in the world today. Alan Clements here from Los Angeles, California, United States of America, our blessed planet Earth. April 14, 2021, from my heart to yours. Thank you for tuning in, being a part of this process, being in my life, sharing this digital trans-global space together, trying to make sense and engage this radical phenomenology of good and evil with the best of us. Today is the 14th talk in a series based upon my newly released book that I wrote here in this house, in this room, titled Extinction X-Rated. Unlike the title, it's anti-porn, and I think it's extremely funny, satirical, a radical, I think, for me, cutting-edge perspective on the most modern, engaged, out-of-the-box expression of the Dharma and meditation and yoga and philosophy and psychology and existentialism and religion that I could come up with, including the psychedelic. How to integrate those multiplicities, those dimensions, those intelligences in both the most organic and the most creative way. You know, how to get over the conventional, how to break the coma of orthodoxy, expectation. So this is the 14th talk in that. Thank you for tuning in. Today is called Waking from the Dream. Now, I don't know about you, but I feel really, really sensitive. I think it's a combination of OCD on meditation, hyper OCD on mindfulness, way too attentive, way too empathic, not too out of the box in the sense that it's wrong. It's just that you don't realize that when you do psychedelic, when you do the LSD, when you do the DMT, when you do meditation excessively, and when you really feel and open your heart, right? The consequences are waking from concentric dreams. Obviously, we wake from a night dream and you're immersed in it. I don't know about you, but you're immersed in the living technicolor of a dream phenomenology. And for whatever reason, based on habit and conditioning or awareness, fear, you are catapulted out of that dimension, if you will. Obviously, it's a strata of consciousness, but I've wakened from the dream. If it's a nightmare dream, one is gladdened. If it's a romantic dream, one is inspired with hope. And then there's daydreams in which we have our eyes wide open and we walk and talk and interrelate, make love, see clients, travel the world, write books, and often until you are jolted by the unexpected or awakened by some latent form of awareness or wisdom, you awaken from your daydream, generally thought of as concentric levels of narrative and thought interwoven into a kind of interiority in which you're absorbed in the intersecting phantasm, the hallucination of consciousness with forms and events and people and places. All the while you could be eating and cooking and listening to music, even dancing, but you're in the daydream. And then you come out. And many people make a lifestyle out of daydreaming and night dreaming and trying to avoid one, analyze the other. And then there are those who awaken, I feel, the psychonaut, the existential savant, the bearer of harsh truth, the yogi, the meditator, the Dhamma activist who awakens out of a volition, a desire to engage existence, to state the obvious, to engage existence with the attitude, if you will, the yogic attitude, the Dhammic attitude, to take control of your life, to take control of your mind, to take control of your destiny. And choice and quality of choice and quality of outcome become a priority for one who wants to wake up from the dream, if you know what I'm saying. You become more consciously driven, mindfully driven, more discerning, of course, more curious. There's a higher degree of adventure and wonderment. And if one is more radical in their artistry and more diligent and really brings the most rigorous kind of mindful emotional intelligence, if you will, to the edge of one's own exploration, one isn't easily satisfied with the new dimension of the dream that you've gone from night and day into, you could call it Dhamma dream. I am inhabiting ideas and narratives and predictions and hopes that are equal to a night dream or a daydream, but they're infused now with the iconography of my spirituality, my journey, my teacher, my nomenclature, if you will, of my psychology. And for a Westerner, the nomenclature of our Dharma often combines so many different traditions that it's difficult to even discern what it is. Call it trans-New Agean, hyper-multi-faith, the eclectic, whatever it may be that defines the new dimensions. And it's easy to live in the appearance of things, as it's been said, rather than the harsh, intimate reality of the truth of existence. And now that right there is a very difficult concept for me to really embrace, but it's what's driven me in my Dharma life is reality. I want to know the truth of things. I want to know the truth of my relationship with you. I want to know honesty as the guidance of that truth sharing in psychology and philosophy and meditation. How many times I learned in meditation that the real vocation of the yogi is to develop a dignity in facing oneself with honesty, waking up from the dream of contrivance, projection, shame, blame, pride, those narratives, those dreams, waking up from those more intrinsic cognitive aspects of difficult to discern elements of one's dream. But to jump further into this spontaneous sharing, what would it mean to live more nakedly in the intimate reality of truth as it really is? Those are very poetic, romantic words. You know, it comes back to something like, I was just thinking as I was preparing to come to sit here, I think it was in Shakespeare's King Lear, where King Lear is talking to the blind Gloucester and asking the blind Gloucester, "Sir, how do you see the world?" And it said in this Shakespearean writing that Gloucester responds, "I see it feelingly." And there's something very beautiful about that concept of feelingly. Even though our eyes may be open or closed, there's a resonant intimacy with my desire to courageously feel the unexpected, to help support the higher understanding of truth and reality. Yes, we all are born and we all will die, but some come and we're faced with tests. We're faced with prognoses. We're faced with the unexpected. And some people, some countries, some families, some regions must face the harsh reality that your life as you've been living it will no longer be the same. And yet, it's always been there. life and death and old age. Awakening from these dreams. And that's why meditation became so compelling to me, is that you could consciously, mindfully navigate dimensions of narrative. And each of them had their joys and struggles, but the more one felt them, as blind Gloucester did, mindfully on a feelingly, King, I feelingly, with my eyes wide open but blind, I feelingly, mindfully, cognitively, psychedelically, intimately resonate with the reality of shared space. And right there, do I have the courage to face my own mortality? Do you? Do you have the courage to face every breath, Alan, as an intimate reality that comes and goes? I'm thinking of the Buddhist quote here. Suffering there is. A radical statement about dream making and extricating oneself from dreams. Suffering there is, O nuns and monks. I'm quoting what I've read. A path there is, but no one who walks it. These are, what do you mean there's no one who's walking the path? You mean there's no one who's listening and talking right now? There is suffering, but no one who suffers. Gloucester the blind is saying feelingly exist. The Buddha is saying feelingly is real, but there is no one who is feeling. That is a dream, a fiction, a cognitive narrative, a phantasm, a bubble, a painting on the walls of your brain. And he concludes this little phrase by saying, enlightenment is, but no one who is enlightened. And wow, that pointing to this non-centrality to the phantasm of existence, that these conditions, he went on to say as I read it, nothing but a continuum of mind and physical conditions in lawful interaction with pleasant and unpleasant and neutral feelings, with states of mind, joy, rapture, love, kindness, fear, shame, worry, doubt, balance, insight, wisdom, and freedom. Freedom from the delusion of a false narrative. I heard that so many times in Burma. A delusional false narrative. Agasara, my monk's name. Meditation is the conscious employment of the constituents of wakefulness, Buddha. The application known as Dhamma, our relationship together as members of Sangha. Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. You, figuratively speaking, Dhamma is taking refuge in Dhamma to awaken to Buddha through the interrelatedness of Sangha. Empty of self, empty of other. We're employing the timeless quality, Agasara, of feelingly, mindfully, wisely feeling reality as it really is. There was something about that, seeing it really as it is. I don't know about you, but so many times when I've done, especially in the last, I won't say how much time, but done the psychedelic, the psilocybin, and here I have been almost a year in purposeful silence and isolation and yoga and diet and fasting and meditation and writing and contemplation. The mind, right, it gets so sensitive. The hazard of all these practices and substances is that your psychic and your nuministic skin just It's like the opposite of a suntan. You're naked. And now we're in this kind of existential snowflakeness together, where we're forming and dissolving in this shared radiance. I mean, obviously, if we were doing, 500 micrograms of LSD right now, I would not want to be on the street with, on the freeway, hitchhiking. That'd be like, oh my God, right? It's the same thing with yogis and meditators and psychedelic savants who combine these disciplines. And it's very difficult to see with your eyes wide open another individual unless you're a Gloucester-like, blind to one, but yet the eyes are open, yet super 2020 with the psychic intuitive resonant of feelingly, right? And all of a sudden you feel you're in a different world. You're waking up from a night dream, a daydream, a Dhamma dream, a delusion dream, a projected dream. And isn't that the whole movement of Dhamma and yoga and psychology? And the reference of the psychedelic metaphor is like, isn't existence a process of awakening from deluded immersion in dreams? Good ones, bad ones, neutral ones, boring ones, erotic ones. And you can hang in the strangest way in your playground or in your dungeon. Sometimes the choice is yours, and most of the time it's not. But as I have seen in my life, and I know you'll testify to this fact, you, figuratively speaking, have come to that place in your life, like this civil disobedience movement, the rebels, the revolutionaries in Myanmar. They came and they're coming to that place. The doctors and nurses being imprisoned today, they've come to that place. The nuns and monks, they've come to that place where they are taking their life so seriously. I am choosing my reality. I refuse to allow you to take my sovereignty. My freedom is mine. My dignity is mine. My feelingly is mine. I know the distinction as best as humanly possible between I and other, myself and you, my feelings and you. And I know the intimate feelingly confluence of where we meet. And I'm free, and you want to take my freedom? Welcome to the civil disobedience movement. The revolution will not be stopped by commentators around the world who compare it to Libya and false states like Syria and predict this catastrophic downfall and demoralize, attempt to demoralize and vilify through their own unthinkable scholarly intellect, and way over here in the comfort of their university telling the people of Burma how it's all going to play out. Hey, honey, when are we going to have sex and wine? What about standing in unthinkable, feelingly resonant, non-dream projection with the revolution? Consciously choosing reality, choosing dreams, and choosing which ones to relax, right? My dad died a few years back. He didn't want to operate on him. Who the hell wants to be operated on? He was 96. He fell off a short little stool changing a light bulb. Fractured his elbow. Did not want to operate, but they waited and finally said, this is about the best day it could happen. They put him under. It was successful. He was coming out of the anesthesia. A very interesting word, the anesthesia. And so much for me is like, so much of delusion is like this weird anesthesia, psychic anesthesia to feelingly. It's like, let's paralyze the nerve endings of the heart and the Dharma to cut open the body. I mean, there's a miracle in it, and there's a kind of madness in it as well. And so he's coming out of the anesthesia. And my nephew's there and the nurse is there. I wasn't there. And my dad is who speaks fluent Spanish. He is just delighted to be, I've come out of this state of mind. I've never known anesthesia, and his mind obviously stayed active during the operation. And he began, when he came out, to talk to the nurse, reciting a romantic Spanish poem and talking to his grandson, and he thought he had been reborn in another dimension, a heaven world. And he was just radiant, I was told, with joy. And intimately, just feelingly in bliss that his grandson was there, and a nurse who could speak Spanish, because he had very few compatriots living near Washington and Virginia Beach who spoke Spanish. But yet he practiced and studied it his whole life, along with photography and botany. And then, an hour later, he died. But he thought he was reborn. And he was coming out of one dream into another dream that was like blind Gloucester, I see the world feelingly. And there's another concentric dream into the next. Where did he go? And what is this world that we're awakening to? What are we choosing to navigate? And suddenly the unexpected happens. The heavenly messengers, old age, illness, disease, the loss of democracy, a car accident, an assassination, a rape, these things that fracture our narratives. And I wonder here as I close, tragic as it is to be ignited to come out of the hallucinations, how to bring Dhamma gift. I remember being encouraged in meditation for many, many years. Whatever the encounter, have the courage to see it. Feel it beyond the narrative of what you interpreted it to be or not be. Disavow from those tendrils, those cognitive rhizome. Disengage from the narrative of right and wrong, good and bad, loss and gain, pleasure and pain, all those dyads of dreaming, as I learned them, the Lokia dreams. Come into the reality of your Gloucester, the feelingly wisdom of mindfulness. And be willing to metamorphically rise out of the night dream, the daydream, the Dhamma dream, the projection dream, the delusion dream into the naked reality of integrating oneself into the existence as it really is reality. We are in a hyper zone of impermanence, devoid of centrality, fraught with the emotions of horror and evil, and at times good and beauty. And where do we want to reside as snowflakes melting and reforming in this existential wilderness, this paradise of good and bad with infinite, boundless dimensions and dimensionality? And here we sit, dealing with everyday mortality, old age, disease, tyranny, terrorism, war, politics, hallucinations, nightmares, dream after dream after dream. I'll close here. Do you ever feel like you're tired of being a participant in the cognitive dream of contemporary reality as we see it? Do you ever feel so immeasurably alone that there's so few people that really can resonate with the possibility of you and her and him and them coming out of these dreams in configuration of mutual togetherness called Sangha? The beauty of extraction and the beauty of elevation, those two expressions of Dhamma. Kema. Kema was the chief ally of the Buddha, as I've read. One of the chief allies, she and Sariputta, Moggallana, Visakha, Ananda. This is samsaric Sangha. And it's said that she was a queen of emotional aesthetics, equally, based on the conditioning of India, thought of as physically beautiful. She wandered, as she did daily, according to what I've read, and heard beautiful song and poetry, was enjoying the birds, the radiance of light, the trees. Imagine the garden, the sacred garden. Across the way, there's the ancient, very hypnotic chanting of nuns and monks, but really not nuns and monks as we know it. They're ancient India, renunciates, radical people walking barefoot on the land, giving up the normal comforts of home and palace and village and sex and intimacy and all the ways in which we live in that dream. But the Gloucester sees those things on a more feeling level and wants a higher radiance at a more heart level. And so she's being driven, according to the sutta, by some instinctual rhythm of energy, an instinctual rhythm of energy, tuning into that. Isn't that the meditative intelligence of the Gloucester effect, of learning how to feelingly resonate with your intelligent flow of choice making at the crossroads of your infinity with the now, and making the wisest decisions on behalf of your integrity and your dignity in caring for the otherness as family and as one. And so she follows the chanting. Anicca vata sankhara. Imagine, we're there. We're on acid. We're alive. We are so radiant with awareness. And she sees the Buddha. They're about the same age. They make psychic eye-heart contact. They do a Gloucester. This is my commentary, obviously. Probably far more compelling to have been there. They do psychic, physical, visual, deep, intuitive, open-hearted, heart gaze. Who are you? There's something here to learn. Isn't that yoga? Isn't that meditation? Isn't that taking the speed out of sex, out of food, out of eating? Isn't that taking the death sentence out of life? Just slowing down, taking time, dropping that dream of time and space and life and death and hurt and loss, all those really elegant things that make the novel of the Dharma and the Bible so compelling, those dramas so poignant, dripping with the anguish of fear and blood and terror and the fights for democracy and revolution and genocide on our planet, the convulsions of Satan and God constantly in a convoluted, weird night-day hallucination battle. I want no fucking part of it, man. And there's Kema and Gautama doing the resonant samsaric sangha reunification, meeting for the first time as ancients, right? Those are the dreams worthy to drop into, right? We're at that time frame today, I think, here in early 2021, where we want our Gloucester at the psychic, numismatic, pre-psychological level of intuitive, resonant, shared space to glide in what we would call, as I've read so often, to take each other home, to walk each other home, to walk each other to that radiant nibbana, the unconditioned playground beyond fear and tears. If we can't imagine that there is that level of existential hope within this wilderness of fear and terror and genocide, why participate? Why not just do mindful euthanasia and trust that when the lights go out, they go out? But if there is a playground beyond the pain, and you can make that decision to see the world beyond its familiar narratives, the Gloucester, the Buddha, and there we have Kema, heart to heart, eye to eye. And the Buddha was said to have seen his ancient sister and felt like a good clinical, existential, psychedelic psychologist feels, gathers the information up through the neurons of their DNA and uses intuitive presence to feel, to share, to listen, to grow. The Buddha shared with his sister, you want to know the truth of your identity, the dream of your identity versus the truth of your... Isn't that what we're all going home towards? The truth of our identities? Don't we make love and touch and kiss and fear and fight and walk and travel to come home to more and more resonance with the truth of my identity? Who am I in this fixation of form and existential infinity? Who am I? The classic ancient question. Who am I? What am I? And how do I take myself home? Beyond, and that too, include, beyond. And the Buddha was said to have seen his sister and resonated so finely with her deep, pure desire to know her core identity. And because they were so inseparably bonded from time immemorial, according to the commentaries, true samsaric sangha, brother and sister, sister and brother, former lover, husband, wife, uncle, ally, deep, deep dharmahood. And he sees, she's still dreaming that beauty, continuity, the narrative of luxury and form, the contours of her face, her breast, her teeth, her eyes, her situation, her family, her husband, her relatives. She is naturally immersed in those contours, but she's rooted in a Dhamma Sanvega, that she could hear how temporary all those dreamscapes are, right? Just like if he threw in 1,000 micrograms of LSD into her psyche, metaphorically, peeling back. Although the eyes are wide open, Gloucester says, I see feelingly, I see knowingly, I see wisely, I see through the radiance of freedom, I see through the radiance of Nibbana, the unconditioned release from dream. And he creates in this shared space, according to this sutta, which I am just utterly fascinated by, he creates a phantasm, a hallucination, a shared cognitive dream configured with an intelligence to provide the perfect script for her to see her innate wisdom interrelate with, to peel back the dream and to wake from the night dream, from the daydream, from the cultural dream, the political dream, the social dream, the gender dream, the time dream, the fear dream, the death dream, the romance dream, the religion dream, to the purity of the awakened non-dream, Dhamma. And he created an image of an equally elegant, aesthetic woman, and within 30 seconds, that entity in shared space, imagine right now on acid, we're all in this world together, and the entire world, all 8 billion of us, with all the megacities, everyone, every animal, every tree. Kema was said to have seen this entity created by the Buddha, and it began to age so rapidly from the age of 17 to 50 to 70 to 95, all within 30 seconds, like one of those extraordinary sci-fi moments that only a digital savant can create. If we had the capacity to create liberating dreams to free ourselves from false narratives and deluded fixations within various forms of dreams. The freedom non-dream. And it said she saw this entity rapidly dissolve before her eyes, in all the ways in which she configured time and space and trust and beauty and strength dissolve before her eyes. Why place myself, as Jesus was said to have said, where dust and rust doth corrupt, right? Liberty over attachment. Imagine if the world that you know, your daughter, your husband, your friends, your animal, your pets, your books, your hopes, your dreams, right now were nothing other than radical disillusioning energies where a year was done in a minute. 100 years was done in 5 minutes. We turned on a Netflix special tonight, right now, and we saw the entire future of the earth for the next 500,000 years in an hour cinema dissolve before our own Dharma heart's eye. And we had the capacity to watch and be privileged to watch that rarefied existential Netflix special, branding Netflix here, how commercial I am, in our own heart, perfectly scripted for the nuances of your own infinite intelligence, rooted in your own innate Dhamma and Paramis. It speaks to the deepest place in you, like the psychedelic does, like meditation does, like a psychotherapist does, someone who's your ultimate savant, Kalyanamita lover, talks with you, feels with you to your highest capacity of resonance. I want to close here. When I was writing my book, Extinction X-Rated, I think some of you know, and thank you for those who are buying the book. There are a few who have the courage so far to buy it. It's based upon the very thing I'm bringing up today. And I'm asking the question, why stay alive? Really, Alan, why stay alive? I remember for about a week, I asked the question and wrote and felt and cried. Because it's not then, it's right now. What would you do? I mean, it's so cliche, but it's so not. What would you do if you had but a week to live? You knew you had 1 week. It's so different than just any time. Any time is almost impossible to get your head around. And yet it's always there, right? Kema snapped out. She got it. Any time. It's happening. Suffering there is, but no one who suffers. She dissolved her identity and began to live feelingly without fixation. Wow. What would I do if I had a week to live? I'll tell you, you don't really want to ask yourself that question, especially with any plausibility, with any real psychedelic, honest, deep dive. Because I made notes as if, Alan, take it out of pretense. You're feeling this. You don't think you're going to live a week. What are you going to do? I wrote down the people I wanted to call. I said, I can't do that. I can't burden them with that. I said, okay, I'll write notes. And I wrote notes to them. And I read them, and it was like nothing was satisfying. Nothing. And then I redid my will. I have so little. It's almost like embarrassing, like which books go to whom. And then there's all that secret stash, of course, that no one knows about. Rich beyond riches. Who do I give my soul to? Who do I tell I love you? Who gets my monk's robes? I ditched that idea. Then I thought, probably the best thing is to do nothing. I said, okay, let's move it up to a day then. You just cut off 6 days of this story, Alan. What will you do if you have 1 day? And I went, holy shit. Holy shit. That's a tough one. I don't know that I want to live like that. But that's the reality, right? We talk about a sixth mass extinction happening. From a geological point of view, it's an instantaneous vanishing of all life and all nature. And yet from a human biological cognitive place, it seems like slow motion, if you even get it. Most live in the daydream, the night dream, the nightmare daydream of anti-feelingness. They just live in the cul-de-sac of where I'm going from here to there. The pornography of this, the masturbation of that. I don't want to denigrate people who live in the narrowness of the suburb of nothing. But I don't know. Premonitions. I've lived my life as well as I could. Alan, just take your life mindfully. Mindful euthanasia. And that is my book. I wrote a book in this room for 9 months with the question, what will you do with the last day of your life? And if you want to know, you can read it. Extinction, X-rated. So from my heart to yours, thank you for being in this process. If you've been tuning in, you've seen the last several days, there's a high degree of sensitivity. I dare say a very overt, feelingly presence right now I have in my heart and my life. We all have our things to engage, and I have mine. Thank you for being in my life. Thank you for being a part of my dream and my overcoming of the dream. Thank you for being in my samsaric sangha. We've known each other from time immemorial. You as Buddha, me as Kema. Me as Buddha, you as Kema. Living in that really intimate, radical, just poignant resonance. Trying to take and support each other, coming home to the Dhamma and to that splendid ideal of Nibbana and Arhantship. Yesterday I closed by saying, and I'll close again today, because it's very present in my life right now. With COVID, with the complexities in Burma, with all that's happened right now in my own fabric, I'm feeling very, very little interest in continuity, in the narrative of time and the hope. My greatest hope is for the people of Burma and the people around the world supporting Burma. They have such a gift to the world and a future of freedom. On a personal basis, feeling like I'm losing one dimension of resilience and encouraging a new skin, if you will, that deeper ephemeral life, which is my aditant, my hope, my cognitive desire to live in Tusita with the next Buddha, Maitreya, where I want to meet a Buddha. I want to meet a Kema. I want to meet a Visakha. I want to meet an Ananda. I want to meet a Mahamoggallana, a Sariputta. I want to meet Mahasi Sayadaw, Sayadaw U Pandita. I want to meet the ultimate existential trans lover. I want to understand what it means to play in the fidelity of timelessness without old age, disease, and death, to be bleeding, oozing from the orifices of a physical organism. Yes, it's great, right? But I would like to live where there is the radiance of pure Dhamma light. I want to live with those people who really want to know the secret radiant things of transformational awakening. I want to play in ephemeral dreamscapes. I'm done with freeways and books and movies and all the various baggages of shopping. Oh yes, it's groovy and cool. I can be mindful. Yes, blah, blah, blah. But I'm done, man. I'm done. I don't know about you. I feel done already as a human being. Beam me in, take me up. I'm your Kama. I'm your Kema. I want to meet a Buddha. I want to hear the radiance of these remarkable auditory cognitive teachings. I want to hear a sutta where you see millions of devas and brahmas become enlightened based upon images of sound and energy. I want to play in that Netflix. Isn't that a fun landscape to go to dream for? Come with me. Come with me to that sacred land. And to take birth in the Sangha with a Buddha, how remarkable it would be to live with rainbows and ambrosia and to dance endlessly without fatigue and to be so still that we could just live for 10 years in the pure silence of a merged nibbonic intimacy, the feelingly of a Gloucester on the most existential level, the poetry of taking ourselves home, and that too, a forest, a thicket, a squirrel, a bird, a worm, all in these new configurations, nature beyond nature, a deeper nature, a higher nature, a higher love, right? So my frailty is saying goodbye to one dimension. I don't want to be melodramatic, whether it's tonight, a year, 10, 20, who knows? My parents lived to 96. Maybe I'll make it to 120. But that next dimension is ever present. Do you see and hear what I see and hear? I want to go to those places where the secret people live, where Dhamma is the pervasive energy, not war and rape. I want to be awakened. I want to know the abhinyas. I want to play in the psychic field of generated castles and dreams and children and birds and love and mind-created thoughts and images to eventually attain with you together this radiant, unconditioned nibbana. Suffering there is, Agasara, but no one who suffers. The path there is, but no one who walks it. Enlightenment is just like a fire. When it goes out, it doesn't totally go there or here. The conditions for the fire to arise disappear, right? I want to cease my engagement in the dream of suffering. That's the one thing I want more than ever at this point in my life, and I hope it translates to you. And I want us to support the people of Burma. They want a life that mitigates the tyranny of oppression and suffering. They want peace. They want freedom on a very human, political, social, cultural, economic level. Throw our support behind them. Think positive energy. Give everything imaginable. Double hand our three fingers up. Support the freedom of Burma. And thank you for joining me today in this anti-sermon, my cry for connection. My heart weeps, and my hope for my own ultimate attainment of arhatship. From my heart to yours, thank you for being in my life.